Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am located at 1563 Main Street in Peckville, and I am here every single Sunday, from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations to provide you, the landowner, valuable information that you need regarding natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. So, of course, if you're looking for landowner information, this is the show for you. At the Clark Law Firm, my practice and my representation is focused solely on landowner, oil and gas right owner representation. I do not, have not, and will not represent gas or pipeline companies. I only represent the landowner side. At the Clark Law Firm, I represent landowners. I've done hundreds of oil and gas leases, pipeline agreements, and you'll hear me say this often. I've actually negotiated pipeline right-of-way agreements. I've been in negotiations with over 50 different companies across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it gives you an idea of what's going on out there. Also doing more and more with estate planning as prior clients transitioning, getting into the royalty phase, or people who weren't clients getting into the royalty phase saying, hey, need to get a plan together. How are we going to handle these, this asset that we didn't maybe contemplate having before? So it's very important that you as the landowner have an estate plan in place, and that you have an estate plan for you, not a plan that works for your neighbor, a plan that works for you. Because with all of these things, no two people are in the same position. You have different life circumstances, different ages, different family structure. So you need a plan for you. Also, I've been doing more with oil and gas lease amendments recently. It's been around for a long time, but we're seeing a series of new amendments, unitization issues, surface use agreements, well pads. Good time to jump in. Listen, I'm going to jump in here. I don't know if I'm going to get time for this later, but I'll talk about it more in future shows. Very, very important. If you, and it doesn't have to be on your property, if you are close to a well pad, and what will happen is you'll get this notice that will be sent to you, and you need to review this information carefully, because one of the things that you'll see is your house, your water well, whatever it may be, your house or water well, may be located within this 500-foot setback area where the company would need to get you to waive or agree that the well site, not the well site, but literally the whole of the drilling operations where it's entering into the ground, is that within 500 feet of your house, your water supply. So you get this paperwork in the mail. Often it's a lot of papers, 20, 30 pages, and landowners can be overwhelmed, but you need to look at this. You need to look carefully, because you may be within this 500-foot area. And I've been seeing this, it's a trend to me I find a bit disturbing, where it's not just one company. I've seen it now with a couple companies where they send these notices out, but you have to you got to be careful. You got to be vigilant, because you have a 15-day period to say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to object to this. I don't agree to have this hole, the drill hole and where it's being drilled. I don't agree to have it within 500 feet of my house or my water supply. So you have to do something. If you do nothing, there's a 15-day period, and you can lose those rights to object. So the thing that I find a bit disturbing is I'm starting to see in more than one case, in more than one company, where landowners receive this information, don't realize, just overwhelmed by the documents, not going through everything, not being told specifically, oh, hey, landowner, here's this permitting information. By the way, your property is within 500 feet, or your house or your water well, where we're going to drill, and therefore you can object to that if that's not something that you're willing to agree to. They don't tell you that in this cover letter or the information you send. So you got to dig in there, and you got to find out and say, well, geez, wait a second. Maybe it's a concern for you. Maybe it's not. But you need to know this. And what I find disturbing is companies are sending this out. They're doing it quietly, as far as not notifying the person maybe in a cover letter, or succinctly saying, oh, hey, by the way, you have the right to object because we're going to be within this 500-foot setback area where we're not allowed to be unless you consent. But by doing nothing, that'll be deemed consent. You have 15 days. And again, look, this is never specific advice for anybody, but you need to look at that paperwork. So again, if you receive paperwork, you need to read it. You need to read it. You need to understand, are you within the 500-foot setback area, house, water well, whatever the case may be? And if you do nothing, then looks like you're going to waive this consent requirement. And I shouldn't say consent requirement. You're going to waive the right to object, and the company's going to do it. And then you may say, well, geez, the drilling operations is pretty close to my house or my water supply. Well, if you didn't do anything, you probably can't do anything about it. So you have to read this information. And my experience has been, I'm starting to see more and more well sites becoming closer to the people's residences, and no one's specifically telling them what their rights are. You get the information in the mail. That's what the law requires. But if you don't read it, if you don't look at it, and you do nothing, then you're going to be consenting to something that you may not even know that you've consented to. So please be very careful when you're getting this permit application information. Find out where your house is. Find out where your water well is. Are you within this setback area? And do you want to object? And you very well may. I've seen people being offered financial compensation in agreement to not object to these setback waivers, but every situation can be different. So the important thing, read the information. Please read it, understand what your rights are, and then decide, do you want to exercise those rights? You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, and you can always contact the office if you need representation. Any of these areas, you can contact the office. And yeah, doing more too. We got a lot of people out there considering, I talked some about this last show, buying, selling oil and gas rights, mineral rights. Please get representation. I just worked on one this past week. It was an absolute mess. It was an absolute mess. And too many times we're seeing that, where the documentation that was entered into between landowners and maybe these rights, the companies that are buying rights, other landowners, the documents, the deeds, the assignments, the agreements between the parties, they're not being done correctly. They're not being done so that they're transferring exactly what the parties think that they're transferring. So don't get cheap on these transactions. And what's happening is, it's not like it's a ton of money. You're talking about selling these oil and gas rights permanently. So if you're going to do that, you better darn well make sure that the documents that you're going to sign are doing what you think they're doing. Too many times, and say you didn't think you were selling your oil and gas rights permanently. You thought you were only assigning rights under the existing gas lease. But then you find out years later that, the documents don't say that. The documents say that you've sold or assigned or transferred your oil and gas rights forever. And I'm seeing this, and it's got to get done correctly. So I say don't be cheap. You get to a lawyer, make sure the lawyer knows what they're doing, and get it done right. I've seen it with attorneys where I think the document, people have told me, here's what we were going to do. Read the documents, come back. I say, look, this doesn't say what you thought you were doing. You need to do this correctly. It's too big of a deal. Commercial alert here. If you're considering selling any or all of your oil and gas rights, I'm going to say I really encourage, call us, give me a call, have a review consultation before you make any decisions. Let's take an hour, 2 maximum. Get this information. Too many people are making bad decisions. In almost all of these calls, the landowner comes out and says, wow, I didn't realize I could do that. And actually all the calls, they say, well, geez, I didn't realize all these different options. And many, many times the landowner changes their position, what they were intending to do, because they got good advice and good information from their side, not the other side. You need to have somebody who's going to give you the information that you need, not the other side of the transaction. The other side of the transaction is their goal is to have the best agreement, the best contract, the best transaction with you that they can. You can't rely on them to educate you, to help you, especially when they're sophisticated. You can't do it. And I get calls. I get calls at the office. People saying, "Oh, I want to buy oil and gas rights. If you know anyone, things like that." Look, I know these, guys, girls, whatever. I know what's going on. I see them looking to get the best deal possible. Take advantage of uninformed landowners, write agreements, write sales agreements, write assignment documents that are extremely one-sided, that have loopholes to allow the other side to get out, to delay payment. You have to do this the right way. So if you're considering selling your oil and gas rights, call before you do anything. Give us a call, have a review and consult. Again, I'm sorry about this commercial aspect here, but you got to do it because people are making really bad decisions. And, once you sign that paperwork, once that deed's filed, you can't go back. You're not going back. You got to do it. And it's a small investment and well worth it. In my opinion, very much well worth it. Listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark, the Clark Law Firm. So I know you're sitting there and you're saying, well, we want to call him. What the heck's his number? You can give me a call, 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702. Also, we're posting the shows. We're doing a pretty good job now. We're getting them up the next tomorrow, Monday morning. You miss any of today's show, go to pagasleysattorney.com or pipelineattorney.com. If you're looking for outstanding landowner information, learning more, get good quality, credible information, where would you go? pagasleysattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Good information, whether you're looking for representation or not, go check out the websites. And of course, we have hours upon hours of prior radio shows archived on the websites. I've been doing the show now for I think I could say well over, we'll just say for over 5 years now. 5 years. So we don't have all the shows up there. Some of this stuff gets stale. This market is always changing. So you can go, though, check out pagasleysattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. You can hear hours of shows, and you can hear today's show tomorrow, as well as all of these last prior week shows. They're all up there and available as well. All right, so when I get back, I'm up against this first break. When I get back, I want to talk about royalty deductions a bit, just a bit. I think I'm going to do it all just in one segment. But one of the things, we've been consulting. I've been consulting with clients, and one of the issues that always comes up is the percentage of my deductions is very high relative to the amount of royalty that I'm receiving. So they're saying, landowners are saying, I'm getting 70 or 80% of my check, sometimes more, is being taken by deductions. And that's very upsetting. And in many cases, there's a drop where maybe it was only 20, 30, 40% was being taken. And now it's up to 70, 80 type percent. So why is that? I'm going to talk about one possible explanation. I think is valuable. I think it's important. I'm going to talk about that the next segment. And I'm going to talk about the need to beware of companies bearing gifts. Beware of gas and pipeline companies bearing gifts because there's probably something behind it. All right, you're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations. I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Again, I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. You can always contact the office, 570-307-0702. All right, I want to talk a little bit about royalty deductions and something, information that I think a lot of people don't understand, and I think this is important. And by no way is this ever any type of an excuse, but what it is, I think, is good quality, credible information that you need to know that many landowners are confused about. And I've been doing reviews and consultations with clients regarding this proposed settlement. And one of the things that repeatedly comes up, and it's been coming up for years, is about landowners saying, I used to get, if my royalty in a given month was $100, say, if the gross was $100, I, as the landowner, I was having deductions taken, and say they were 20 or 30%. So they were like $20 out of the 100, so I would take home, or I would net $80, or maybe it was 70 out of 100 you would take home. Then all of a sudden, sometimes all of a sudden, sometimes gradually, your $100 royalty, now all of a sudden your take home, you're looking and saying, well, wait a second, the deductions before were only 20 or 30%. Now I'm starting to see them 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90% from the net. When you subtract the deductions, I'm only getting, as a landowner, 10, 20, or 30% of what this gas was being sold at. Understandably, very upsetting. Why is this occurring? Well, I'm going to explain again. This is going to be real general. It's going to be very basic, but it's something that should give everyone the idea. Hopefully say, okay, when pull out some of these statements, look at them, consider this information, and see if you can find that maybe this is a reason why you're starting to see more of your royalties being eaten up by deductions. Okay. One thing that we saw, that I've seen recently, is if you look at statement dates for Chesapeake landowners who are leased with Chesapeake, if you look in, say, your statement of May and June 2015, not the production dates, but the date on your check. So if you look at your May check, you may say, wow, okay, I did pretty well. That the amount of deductions relative to the gross royalty payments is pretty small, meaning that out of the gas, or out of the gross statement, my deductions, or the gross payment for what the gas was being sold at, my deductions were only, say, 30%. But then the next month, the amount of deductions relative to what the gas was, the gross number that I'm seeing on my royalty check, well, 1 month the deductions totaled about 30%, and then the next month maybe it was 60, 70, or 80%. Well, let me explain one reason why you may see this type of change. And again, it's not an excuse, but this is an explanation. So you can look at this, pull out your checks. There's different things to look at other than, okay, what is the company, they're cheating me, they're just stealing my money. Well, there may be legitimate reasons here. Here's an example. So in my experience, most of these companies have contracts to transport the gas from the wellhead where it's being produced, ultimately, we'll say, to the interstate pipeline. So the gas producing company, your Cabot's, your Southwesterns, your Chesapeake, your Range Resources, and on and on and on, Chief, etc., they have entered into contracts with pipeline companies, these what they call midstream companies often, to transport the gas, maybe dehydrate it, process it, compress it, and get this gas to the interstate pipeline, and then ultimately to sale, which may occur at the interstate pipeline or some point downstream. So the gas company enters into a contract, we'll say, with a pipeline company. Well, there's variables to this. However, generally what you see is that, and this makes sense, if you're a gas company producing gas, generally the contracts that you enter into with the company who's going to transport the gas is going to be based upon how much gas that is going to be transported through the pipeline. So it's going to be based on the volume of gas that you as a producing company are transporting through the pipeline of the third party who you're paying for that service. Now, I want to stress, these contracts can be done in a lot of different ways, but let's say for this example that fundamentally the amount of gas, the company who produces it, your Chesapeake's, Cabot, Southwesterns of the world, etc., the amount of gas that they're producing and transporting, well, they're gonna pay a fee based upon the volume of gas they're transporting. Now, I want to stress, there's variables to this, but this is the general explanation here. So when I talk about variables, what do I mean there? Well, you may have a contract with the gas company, with the pipeline company, that requires a minimum amount of gas to be transported. So if you don't meet as a gas company or producing company these minimum volumes that you've promised the pipeline company to transport through their gas transportation system, you may have to pay some sort of penalty or an increased price. And likewise, maybe if you transport over a certain volume of gas per month, the price per unit starts decreasing. So you can have changes to this. But for the purpose of illustrating this point, and I think it works well, we're going to just pretend that the gas company pays the pipeline company a certain amount of money for each unit or MCF of gas that's being transported. And I'm going to call it a unit of gas. So you're a gas company. You're producing gas from a well. You need to get it to market. You enter into a contract with a pipeline company where they're going to transport it from the well site to where it's going to be sold. That contract is going to say, for example, in this example only, all right, gas company, we will charge you, and I like nice round these or even numbers. We're going to charge you $1 for every unit of gas that's going to be transported through our system. Now, again, I'm making this number up for ease of discussion here. So the contract that you have as a gas company with the pipeline company says, I will pay you, pipeline company, $1 for every unit of gas that you transport to the interstate pipeline. Make it simple. At that point, I, as the gas company, will sell my gas at the interstate pipeline. So we're going to make it simple and say that no matter how much gas that I transport, we're going to have a set fee of $1 per unit of gas that you, pipeline company, transport for me, the gas company, from the wellhead to the interstate pipeline where I then sell the gas. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'm here every Sunday in these stations from 8 to 9 a.m. You can also go to pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com, listen to any of this show and prior shows that we'll have, we already have archived up and available at the website. Okay, so back to our scenario. And I'm sorry to repeat it because I want to really get this, that we have a nice little foundation here. Gas company pays pipeline company $1 for every unit of gas that the pipeline company transports from the well site to the interstate pipeline where the gas producer sells the gas. Well, what happens is, I'm going to give you some examples. So it's costing $1 a unit to transport it. We'll say that when I, as the gas company, get my gas to the point of sale at the interstate pipeline, the best price that I can sell it at is only $1.25 per unit of gas. The market is getting crushed. Everyone knows that. Too much, the supply is outweighing the demand, especially in these regions here. So what happens is, I'm the producer, I'm the gas company. I pay the pipeline company $1 per unit to get my gas to the interstate pipeline where I'm going to sell it. But when it gets there, I can only sell it at $1.25 because that's the market price. Well, if you sell the gas at $1.25 per unit and you have to pay $1 to get that gas there, you have to pay the pipeline company $1 to get it to the point where you're selling it at $1.25. Well, what are you doing there? Well, if that's their only expenses, you're making 25 cents. So if you take the $1.25, you subtract $1 you had to pay the pipeline company to get that unit of gas to the interstate pipeline. Well, you as a landowner then, you're going to see that $1 in costs compared to the $1.25 that the gas price sold at, well, those deductions, that dollar out of $1.25, that's 80%. So if you're a landowner, again, we're really simplifying this, and you say, well, geez, my deductions this month were 80%. Well, that may be because it cost a certain, again, we're sticking with my example, it cost $1 to get it to market, and the company only made $1.25, and you see this deductions, and you say, wow, the company has deducted 80% of my royalty here. Well, here's the thing. Again, not trying to defend a company, but this is a reality. This example, say hypothetically, the company the next month transports their gas from the wellhead to the point of sale at the interstate pipeline in this example, pays the pipeline company $1 in cost to get it there, and instead of selling it at $1.25, now there's a spike in the market. They can sell it that month at $4 per unit, and gas has been higher than that for sure. So the next month, they're selling that same gas. It's still costing them $1, in my example, to get it from the wellhead to the interstate pipeline, But instead of selling it at $1.25, the next month, the company was able to sell it at $4 at the interstate pipeline. Well, landowner looking at their check saying, hey, I only had $1 out of $4 being deducted, or in other words, we're talking about 25%. $1 out of $4 is 25%. So assume that the exact same amount of gas was being transported each month. In 1 month, the gas is only sold at $1.25. Assume that the costs are always $1 per unit. The next month, the gas is sold at $4. You as a landowner are going to see a significantly higher royalty check because the constant in this example was it cost $1 per unit to get this gas to the interstate pipeline where it's sold. But the huge variable in this example is 1 month you sell it at $1.25, the gas company does. The next month they sell it at $4. Well, if they sold that gas at $1.25 a unit, $1 of deductions and costs would be 80% of that number. The next month, if they're able to sell it at $4, well, that dollar per unit cost, well, that's only 25% of $4. So what happens is there's been times where you'll see a landowner, I see a check, and a landowner, 1 month is the gas sold at $4 or $5 a unit, and then the next month it was down to $1.50, sometimes less, but in say $1 to $2. And although the amount per MCF, per unit of transportation, may not have changed very much at all, the price changed drastically. So if you sell, 1,000 units at 1,000, or we'll say if you sell 1,000 units at $1.25, well, you sold those at $1,250. So your net gain is $250. But if you sold 1,000 units at $4 a unit, well, now the price that you receive for your gas, 1,000 units times $4 is $4,000. So think about that. In one example, you have a $250 profit, we'll say. In the other, 4,000 minus the 1,000 to get it there, you have a $3,000 profit. So you as a landowner are going to see that the deductions of $1 a unit when you're only selling it for $1.25 are substantial. But you can have the same scenario, and if you were able to sell that gas at, say, $4, those deductions now are only about 25%. So that's a big difference. So when you're looking at your checks as a landowner, what you want to do is you want to look at the volume. You want to look at what was the price of gas in that given month and look for this trend. There's ways that you can check this out and you can find, and we see this all the time. I've looked at a ton of checks recently, and I see often that we have situations where landowners say, all right, the company just jacked up these prices. They're killing me. Something really fishy is going on. They're stealing from me. But when you look and you see that maybe the price per MCF or unit for transportation remained essentially the same or didn't change very much, but the gas company sold the gas for 25% less the next month or 50%. So if you're seeing a $4 per unit sales price on your check, and then the next month you're seeing a $2, and then the next month $1.50, well, think about it. That's the profit that the company is getting and that you're getting from the sale of this gas, but there's still these expenses to get the gas to the market. So pipeline companies aren't out there, in my experience, saying, well, gas company, if you aren't able to get as much money, we'll charge you half the price or a quarter price for transportation fees. No, those fees can be constant or relatively close to being constant, but the gas price fluctuation is going to really take a bite out of the landowner royalty and, of course, the companies as well. So if they're selling at $4 1 month and $1.50 the next, and the deductions remain the same, well, deductions are going to seem extremely high because the gas didn't fetch a high price. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. You can contact me anytime, 570-307-0702. I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Okay, so I want to go back. I hope it wasn't confusing. I hope the point got across. And I'm sorry again if this is repetitive, but I do want to make sure I'm doing a good job explaining this. You know, one of the things, I'm looking at royalty checks a lot recently, talking with landowners, explaining, discussing why are we seeing sometimes these deductions that used to be only 20 or 30% of your royalty check are now 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90%. One possible explanation, and many times this is the explanation, but one common explanation is that the price of gas, as it goes down, you tend to see that the percentage of royalties that you're seeing in deductions for these post-production costs, transportation and gathering, the percentage of the deductions tends to go up as the price of the gas goes down. Why is that? As a general principle, the price per unit of gas, to transport it from the well site to where it's being sold, that price is not going to go up and down the way that the gas price does. So if a company has to pay $1 for every unit of gas that they have to transport, they have to pay to give the pipeline company $1 for every unit of gas from the wellhead to where they're selling it. Well, if they sell it at $1.25, that $1 is 80% of their sale price. If they sell it for $4, that $1 transportation cost is only 25% of the sale price. So as a landowner, if the company's selling the gas at $4 and only paying $1 to transport it, your deductions for transportation are going to be much, much lower than if the company is selling it at $1.25 and it costs $1 to get the gas to market. So as landowners, we're rooting for high gas prices. Absolutely. That's going to be the best thing for the landowner. So very important. Another thing to look at. You may say, well, I saw, it's not just the percentage. Maybe I saw in 1 month I had $1,000 in deductions, and say the next month maybe you had $10,000 in deductions. So I'm picking out numbers here. Well, you got to look too at the volume. What we're seeing is we're not always seeing that all of these wells are operating at full capacity. So maybe in 1 month, you're seeing that the gas being produced, I'll make up numbers, is only 100,000 units of gas being produced from a given well. But then the next month, maybe there's 1 million units being produced and sold. Well, think about it. If you're being charged $1 a unit as a company to transport your gas, if you transport 100,000 units, well, your transportation costs are going to be $100,000 that month. If you have these wells operating in more full capacity in this general example, and say you sell 1 million units the next month, or you transport 1 million units at $1 a unit, well, your transportation cost the next month is $1 million. So what are you going to see? You're seeing 10 times the cost, but you're seeing 10 times the volume. So again, when you're piecing this together as a landowner and you're looking at your check and you're saying, well, geez, company's ripping me off, something's going on. There may be, in most cases, almost all cases, there is an example, or there's an explanation, not example, but an explanation. And that may be that the price of gas went down so low that the percentage of deductions has increased greatly because they're just not able to sell the gas at a higher price. So the deductions eat up a lot of the profit versus, look, what if they were able to sell it at $10 a unit and they paid $1 a unit to get it to the sale point? Well, now those deductions are only 10%. So you could have the exact same number or volume of gas. Just finish it this way. We'll say this. If you transport an identical volume of gas for the identical price per unit, so let's just say something real simple. You transport 100 units of gas for $1. In 1 month, you can sell that 100 units of gas for, say, $2. And so the next month, what if you could sell it at $10? You still have the same $100 in cost to get it there, but you have a huge difference in profit. and the landowner is going to benefit from that. So look at your volumes, look at the gas price. We've done a lot of checking of these things, done a lot of math. My calculators, buttons are all wore off, but in most cases, we can get a good explanation. Now, remember again, there are always variables in these contracts, but we're trying to illustrate something that's a real fundamental concept that I'm seeing often. Have conversations with landowners. They say, well, geez, I didn't realize that. I never looked at it that way. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But please, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, what's going on? I'm seeing all these deductions. My percentage is going really high. Well, pull out some of your checks. Look at what was the price of gas when the percentage of deductions that you were having taken were very low, and then look at it when it's really high. And most likely what you're going to find is that the price of gas, when the price of gas was higher, the amount of deductions percentage-wise that was being taken will be lower, but when the gas price goes down real low, you're going to find that the percentage of deductions relative to your royalty is going to be much higher. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. in these stations. You can always contact the office, 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702. Check out PAGasLeaseAttorney.com. Check out PipelineAttorney.com. A lot of great information available out there for you as the landowner in every type of area, whether it be pipeline related, surface development, whatever the case may be. Go check out the websites, PAGasLeaseAttorney.com, PipelineAttorney.com. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Clark Law. We're trying to get more and more active there as well. So, okay, I want to turn the page a little bit. I teased this big radio term there. I teased the idea of beware of companies bearing gifts earlier. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about it in a lot of different ways, and we've framed it kind of in different ways. But I'm going to try it this way because I want to get this information out. If a company is coming to you and they are acting like they're doing you a favor, they're saying, we're the good guys. We want to get you money. You haven't had production, so we're trying to find a way to help you out. We want to throw some money at you. Or they say, hey, really want to get your royalties here. We just need you to sign this document. Listen, red flags should be going up. Really bright, really big flags should be going up. Now, what do? You listen, and then you go speak with somebody who understands and can give you some guidance here. Now, if it is something where there are no strings whatsoever and it's a really good deal for you, it's real simple. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, here's what the company wants to do. They're telling me they need me to sign this and they can get royalties gone. So we look at it and say, you know what? There's a big problem here for the company, and they're not being such nice guys as they're representing they are. They actually have a big problem here. And here's what the problem is, and here's why they're seeking to do and why they want you to sign what they want you to sign. That's one possible discussion. The next possible discussion is, well, you know what? This is something. It's not a big deal. You can sign this document. Here's what it's all about. I don't see any issues here, and I think you're all set. Well, that's a real quick conversation. That's also not an incredibly difficult review to do because you understand what's going on. You have the experience, what's happening here. However, on the flip side, I've told you one story before where, hey, we want to get your royalties, here, sign this document. Well, landowner calls, thankfully, review it and say, hey, look, they got a big problem. They've drilled under your property and they don't have a lease. So what are we going to do about that? Do you want to just sign this document and you're back on to where you were? Or do you want to say, hey, I'm not going to sign it. Let's explore what your options are. In one case, over time, certainly, the result will be, I feel comfortably into the over $1 million range. But even right off the bat, it was a multi-$100,000, more than $100,000. I don't want to get too detailed. Benefit right away for the landowner, increased royalty percentage. There's a lot of things that potentially can happen. So if the company comes to you and they're acting like, oh, we want to do you a favor, please be careful. Here's the thing. We have all the time now, companies, gas prices so low, we don't have any money, we can't do this, we can't do that. Oh, by the way, here, we want to give you $500 an acre for you to sign this document. We want to be nice guys because we're afraid that you're not getting royalties, and we just feel bad about that. Please be careful. 2 clients I'm actively representing now on exactly that issue. Company says, oh yeah, we want to be nice guys. Here, we want you to sign this. Well, look, you want to be nice guys. You want to give somebody money, give them money. We'll sign a receipt. But you want to be a nice guy and you want them to sign an amendment to the oil and gas lease. Well, if you just wanted to be a nice guy, why are you amending this gas lease? Well, in these cases, in my opinion, why they're amending or seeking to amend the gas lease is because the gas lease may have terminated and they're trying to fix it. So you got to be careful where companies are seeking to fix problems. They, put their arm around you. Hey, we're partners. We want to get you some money. Just sign this document. But this document's not a receipt. Like, hey, here's $50,000. Sign this receipt. No. Hey, here's $50,000. Sign this oil and gas lease amendment. You have to know what you're signing. How many times? I can't say it enough. You should not and cannot sign any document. I mean, you can, but really you shouldn't sign any document unless you really understand what the heck it's all about. And I can assure you, in these examples where I believe the landowner is going to make out significantly better than what they were offered, what happens is the company's not telling you. They're telling you, we want to be nice guys. We're good guys. Here, sign this. Or, hey, sign this waiver of setback for the well site to your house so we can drill these wells and get royalties going. Well, maybe that's a concern for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something the company would offer you financial compensation to address. Who knows? Well, how do you know? You have to explore it. You have to go speak with somebody who's experienced and understands it and say, okay, hey, yeah, look, this isn't a big deal. You can go ahead and sign it. How much time did that take? Probably not very much at all. An hour maybe of time, maybe less, maybe 2, probably less, versus, hey, this company has a big problem here. And I think you have incredible leverage. And here's what the plan would be. Here's what I would recommend. Here's what I think you should do. And we talk about that. You as a landowner, you always make the decisions. But those decisions, you may say, holy heck, thank heavens we talked. And the net result is sometimes literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe the potential for significantly increased royalties in the future. And it's as simple as, at worst, taking an hour or 2 to making sure that you know what the heck you're signing. And you're not giving up opportunities and you're not giving up rights. You got to know. All right. And look, I'll say it. 570-307-0702, 570-307-0702. You should not sign any lease amendment and frankly any other document without consulting with somebody who knows what they're doing, who's there to help you, who's going to work for you. Why? Because the landman doesn't work for you. She works for the company. This is Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. Finally got it in there. I'll be right back after this break. I'm here every Sunday, 8 to 9 a.m. Again, right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Here on our last segment, it's going to be a short one. I wanted to really get through these royalty explanations, but a reminder, it gets confusing. If you want to go back, you want to listen to any of today's show, we'll have it up tomorrow, Monday morning. You can go to pagasleaseattorney.com, go to pipelineattorney.com. Check out the show in its entirety. Been doing the show for 5+ years. There's many other hours of shows. Touched on some other topics. Selling oil and gas rights. I can't say it enough. If you are truly considering selling oil and gas rights, it will benefit you to have a review and consultation with my office before you make any decisions or ever put pen to paper. Been dealing with this a lot, and it's a problem area, and landowners need to be protected. Also, oil and gas lease amendments. Want to get back to this for a minute and say, everybody back a few years ago, companies were going up to landowners wanting to amend the leases to increase the size of drilling units. Very common to go from, say, a maximum of 640 acres to either an unlimited size, maybe 1,280 acres, which would be double 640, but very common. Gas companies would say, we're not offering any money. We're not doing anything. We're not giving you any compensation. You either agree or don't agree. And then whatever persuasive techniques they want to say, to get your royalties sooner, whatever the case may be. But the point is that back then the companies would say, we're not offering you anything to sign. First thing everybody says is, I want more royalty. I want more money. I don't want to have deductions. Companies are saying, no, we're not touching this. You either sign it or you don't sign it. Well, I'm seeing a shift. I'm seeing various companies, Chesapeake, EOG, various companies in Pennsylvania who will say, we want to have a lease amendment, who may be today willing to pay compensation. A very common situation is some of these bigger leases or group leases require a company to drill more than one well within a designated time frame. Companies don't like that. They want to push that time frame out. So if they have to drill, say, 2 more additional wells by 2017, well, companies always doesn't want to do that. The gas price, we're talking about the price of gas. Gas price is so low. So what do? They approach a landowner and say, hey, we'd like for you to amend your lease to give us some more time to drill. And what the landowner should be doing, everything you need to look at, is this an opportunity? Why would I agree? Why wouldn't I agree? And you should be consulting with a knowledgeable attorney who understands this, who's been dealing with it. I think I know a guy, but you should, regardless of who it is, whether it's me or somebody else, you should be doing that. And you need to understand, what can you do? What are they asking you to do? And I've seen somebody, I was consulting with a landowner on one of these issues, and I truly, sometimes I'm surprised that, we didn't do better. Sometimes I'm surprised at how well things work out for a specific person. In this case, I was shocked compared to what, original offer is, and there was offer for compensation to amend the lease compared to what was ultimately agreed to. Substantial amount of money. Don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to call a knowledgeable attorney, because that call could make you, could make you hundreds of thousands of more dollars. It really could. Now, it could make you tens of thousands of more dollars. Or the call could lead to a review and consultation and say, hey, look, you know what? There's really not much here. Here's what your leverage is. Here's where you have weak leverage. And in this particular case, you probably don't want to spend more money. You don't want to go back and forth a lot. Here's what you may want to do. Or, hey, wait a second. Just represented a guy who original offer was only, hundreds of dollars, say, per acre on a bonus payment to sign this amendment, and it went to maybe thousands of dollars. Again, just general examples. So you need to, and that difference there could be, depending upon your acreage, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you got to make those calls. You got to understand. What's happening is you're getting one landowner in a given unit that's signing an amendment and not getting anything or getting very little, and then you're getting the other landowners in a unit or a landowner in a unit who called, got good advice, and ends up making significantly more money. Much better deal. I stress always, it's individual. You got to find out about your individual situation. But I don't want to see any landowner who could have obtained, a double, triple, quadruple, or more money sign an agreement for much, much less money because they didn't call an attorney. They didn't give us a call. They didn't do whatever it is. They just took the landman's word. Another opportunity. Landman, newsflash, working for the company, not for you, the landowner. If you'll sign an amendment and modification at $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, whatever it is, are they going to offer you $1,000, $2,000, whatever there it is they're willing to offer? Well, no. They're going to sign you at the lowest possible rate. But if you find out, hey, we know of other people that have gotten paid much higher, well, you're going to want to get that payment. So make that call. I can't stress it enough. If it's simple and it's easy and it's not a problem, then it's something that's taken care of very quickly. So any attorney fees, expenses are very minimal. If it's something that's more involved and you have leverage, there's a discussion and explanation of what your situation is, and then you decide how you want to handle it. And in many cases, when you have that leverage and you know what you're doing, you can obtain significantly more compensation that's offered. I just hate to see, look, the companies have enough money. Yeah, gas prices are low and all of those things, but they still have enough money. And in fact, they have money in their back pocket that they're maybe willing to give you. You just have to know that you need to ask for it. Push a little bit. Got to know how you're handling it. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday on these stations from 8 to 9 a.m. You can go back, pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com, listen to today's show, other shows, but importantly also great information there. And how do I know? Well, I'm obviously a part of it. So go check out pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. I know this last segment, little commercial, and I've been doing a little more lately when I say commercials, saying, hey, call me. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I've been working on these lease amendments and modifications where clients have been getting paid. You didn't hear me say, when the company was saying, well, we want to go from 640 to 1,280 acres a unit. Hey, call me. No, because there wasn't anything I could do in most of these cases. But today, we're seeing things can be done, but you got to know things can be done and you got to know your circumstances. And that's the key. Don't do it alone. Get good information. If there's nothing you can do, it's not going to take long. It's not going to cost much. If there's something that you can do, well, it may take longer. That's your decision. But the benefit is probably going to be significantly higher than what any expense would be. So learn more. You can always call me 570-307-0702. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. That's all we have time for today, but I'll be back next Sunday, 8 to 9 a.m. All Things Marcellus. Join me, Attorney Doug Clark. Check out the websites, pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Have a great week, everyone.